of damnation. For eternity we were consigned to oblivion, pushed to the shadows of existence. The sun will drown. The oceans will be scoured with blood. And the rise of the forgotten will come to punish your soul.
Hey everyone, it's Dark Energy with AoE Gaming, bringing you another out-of-the-box build. If you liked my Necrotic Horde build, Stamina Necromancer, then you might just love this Magicka-based counterpart, the Mad Conjuror. Check out these clips and we'll loop back around and discuss the build. Alright, well, I hope you enjoyed those clips, and now let's jump into this build. So, we're going to start with the gear. The first 5-piece set we're wearing is Icy Conjuror. We've got a charged trait, Lightning Staff, with a shock glyph. The 5th item, when you apply a minor debuff to your enemy, you summon a non-reflectable Ice Wraith. It will deal 32,000 damage over 10 seconds. We purposefully have a charged trait with a shock glyph because that's going to increase our chance to give them minor vulnerability, and it's going to be non-stop. The next set, Mad Conjuror. The 5-piece on it, when you deal damage, you have a 10% chance. It's actually wrong. The wording is not updated. When you deal damage, you have a 100% chance to summon a Verminous Fabricant. Almost 15,000 damage every 8 seconds. Now look, this just turned on. A minute ago, it had 3 pieces, and then Icy Conjuror was on. Now the 5th trait of Icy Conjuror is off, and Mad Conjuror is on. We are playing this toggle game with absolutely no consequence. It's very much so worth it to do this because we're pushing out Magicka's Band of Brutality to increase our proc damage by 25%. It actually increases all your damage done, but it will also buff your procs. We'll get into that in a minute. The monster set, Maw of the Infernal, a max Magicka trait, and has a, I didn't update the glyph there, now I did. When you deal damage with a light or heavy attack, 33% chance. This used to be 10% chance until they updated it in Ysgramor. 33% chance now. You do a light or heavy attack, and he's going to come out. So he's basically out all the time. As you might have seen, we are Inferno Staff and Lightning Staff, dual Destro. Those long Lightning Staff heavy attack pulls are going to bring him out, guaranteed. Icy Conjuror's Necklace, and Magicka's Band of Brutality, Bloodthirsty, with a triple recovery trait. Now listen, this 1-piece mythic item is huge on a build with a lot of procs because your procs are going to take a buff by 25%. You're limited in how you buff your proc damage, and I'm actually going to go into that on another video here since we're in the Stonethorn proc meta pretty much. But anyhow, that is the gear setup. You don't have to do the toggle where you go Icy Conjuror and Mad Conjuror back and forth. You could just do 5, 5, and 2, keeping both of those sets active at all times, but you're not going to have Magicka's Band of Brutality. When you're eating Clockwork, Citrus Fillet, you could do a tri-meal like Bewitched Sugar Skulls. The Lover, Sharpen, almost 4,000 penetration. That's our Mundus. That is going to increase our proc damage as well with the sets we are wearing, as well as all the other skill-based damage we put out. So that is the simple basics of the gear we are wearing. The stat screen buffed up without major sorcery from Entropy, increasing our spell damage by 20%, and without the Berserker glyph procced with 1720, it would be around 2600. If you wanted to change some of the recovery glyphs on the jewelry to spell damage, you could get easily well over 3000 if that's important to you, but you're hitting hard on this build, believe me, especially with Magicka's. We're using the Tri Potion, and look, this Tri Potion with all that recovery as well as the Lightning Staff with heavy attacks, there is just endless Magicka coming your way. So let's talk about how these sets work now and how we use them. Icy Conjuror's Lightning Staff, it's charged with a shock glyph. That's because we need to apply a minor debuff. And that minor debuff we're going for is minor vulnerability on the enemy, which is going to increase all of their damage taken by 8%. I did a light attack, and the enemy was affected with minor vulnerability, and then the Ice Wraith came out, as you see. This is like 95% of the time. This is going to happen. This is also going to happen with any of the flame damage or frost damage you do. They would get minor maim. There's the Daedroth, even though we're not... wait your turn, buddy. So, he's just pounding him here. We're just going to wait because I want to make this nice and clear. So, the charge trait is going to basically almost 100% of the time. There he went. Icy Conjuror's procced. And what's funny... it's cyclical. Right now, with the frost on him, he just procced himself because the frost is giving the enemy minor maim, resulting in 15% less damage output from them. This Icy Conjuror Ice Wraith comes out every 10 seconds, but lasts for 10 seconds. So it's proccing itself kind of in a loop here. But to get it started, I use the charged lightning staff with the shocked glyph. 32,000 damage is a pretty good amount of damage. If I were to switch to my Mad Conjuror sharpened Inferno staff, the damage would be even higher because of the sharpened trait, but the damage carries over. And that's why we play this toggle game between the two destros. It doesn't matter that one turns off or the other turns off as we swap. They are still basically 100% uptime. Okay, so I swapped to the Mad Conjuror Inferno staff to make sure the Icy Conjurer doesn't proc itself again. I want to talk about Mad Conjuror. So with Malakast, you're not going to get those first two traits to spell crit. That's okay though. When you deal damage, now the wording is messed up on this. I don't know why they didn't update it, but 13,600 for shock damage to any enemy, all enemies in its path, and it knocks them in the air. It's a nice free CC, and it's every 8 seconds. So they increased the damage actually on this Stonethorn patch. They decreased the cooldown, and I'll tell you what, they made it to where it wasn't 10% proc chance, it was 100. But the weird thing is the wording says 10% still. And what's also weird is that it's 100% of the time coming out, but occasionally with certain skills, it doesn't come out. But with, heavy attack, light attack, crushing shock, I mean, he's out every 8 seconds, which I love. That buff is actually huge. Has made this set worth wearing. Anyway, I love it. Between these two, there's the day drop game. Look, 14,000 damage. See that the damage he was doing was actually greater than what was listed in the tooltip. That's because Malakast Band of Brutality, for whatever reason, they don't allow the tooltip to register that 25% increased damage. So now let's jump into the skills here that we use. We will start with the Inferno Staff Bar. Our first skill is Crushing Shock. 2,500 almost flame, frost, and shock damage, as well as interrupting and setting off balance if interrupted. That's a great weavable skill for light attack, crushing shock, light attack, crushing shock, rapid damage. Next skill, Spirit Guardian. This fellow will heal you every 2 seconds, but also while he's out, he will mitigate 10% of the damage you take. There's also a passive for having him out that basically increases your physical and spell penetration. We'll go over that later. Next skill, Stalking Blast Bones. Love this one. It's colossal, the damage is. Again, Malakast Band of Brutality would increase that tooltip, but it doesn't work that way. 25% more damage doesn't show up on the tooltip here. Blast Bones is a great bursty direct damage AoE. The next skill, Resistant Flesh. This is our kind of a quick heal. And the cool thing about Malakast Band of Brutality is it doesn't stop you from crit healing yourself. So when you heal, it's cool because, yeah, there's a minor debuff, but you get the physical and spell resistance equal to half of the numeric value healed. The next skill is our light armor skill, the Ward. 10,000 plus damage shield for 6 seconds. You can't beat this. You're going to go in PvP especially. You got to have this shield. Cast it regularly. So our ultimate is Glacial Colossus. Almost 9,000 actually when I buff up here with Entropy. 20% spell damage with Major Sorcery. Our damage is going to go up. 90, almost 400 frost damage with each smash, and then stuns all enemies for 4 seconds. Also gives them major vulnerability, increasing their damage taken by 30% for 8 seconds. Now that's going to increase all the damage they take, including from your procs, stacking with minor vulnerability from the shock glyph and stacking with major, the 25% Malakast Band of Brutality damage. Just so much damage output and damage buffing for these proc sets. So anyway, let's go ahead and get back to talking about the skills here. We will switch to the Lightning Staff bar, the Icy Conjurer bar. So let's take a look here. Our very first skill on this bar is Deaden Pain. I like this one. It grants you ultimate when you suck the life out of dead corpses. It heals you for 715 every 1 second for 2 seconds, but it gives you major protection for 2 seconds times that. If you have 4 corpses, it's going to be 8 seconds. 3 corpses will be 6 seconds. And even while it's slotted, your damage taken is reduced by 3%. But that major protection is non-stop. And even Mad Conjuror results in a soul for a Necromancer to suck up on. So the next skill is Skeletal Arcanist. When he's out, it's pretty nice because he's going to go ahead and deal AoE damage, direct damage, but also it's going to increase your physical and spell penetration during the time frame where he's out, which helps all of your procs hit harder, all of your damage hit harder. So it's very nice. And then he has a soul. Obviously, he leaves behind to suck up with Deaden Pain, which, by the way, you could use the other morph. You'd lose that major protection, but you'd get 6 ultimate per soul on Deaden Pain. Next skill is Avid Boneyard. A lot of frost damage over a 10-second period. You can activate your own synergy, which deals a very big chunk of damage to all enemies within the area and heals you for 100% of the damage done. You can't beat that. The other morph will give the enemies major breach as long as they're in the area, which sounds like it'd be nice, but you can't activate a synergy. An ally has to, and there's no healing coming back your way. So next skill, Degeneration, an absolute must on a Necromancer, at least a Magicka Necromancer. This is how we get our major sorcery buff for 20% increased spell damage. It's also going to deal a nice 13,000 over 10 seconds dot, so that's nice. The next skill is our Major Resolve and Major Ward, Summoner's Armor, which also, while active, reduces the cost of Blast Bones, Skeletal Mage, and the Spirit Mender by 15%, which you cannot beat that, especially on a build like this where you are utilizing all 3. And by the way, it looks really cool. Alright, so the ultimate on this build, Ravenous Goliath on this bar, Ravenous Goliath. You transform into a Ravenous Goliath. You increase your health by 30,000 for 20 seconds and immediately restore 30,000 health. Light attacks restore health, heavy attacks restore health, and you deal damage around you in an AoE, which will also restore health. So here we go. We transformed into a big, nasty, angry beast who's smiling with a very sinister, happy smile. Behind it, I think, is a lot of evil and deceptiveness. Anyway, so this light and heavy attack damage is going to give us healing back, as well as that green AoE around us. And of course, the synergy right there from Graveyard will give us healing back. The Spirit Mender will give us healing back. And whenever we use Deaden Pain, which when these 2 souls fall down, I will take them. And something else that's really awesome, I might have already said it, I can't remember, is that Mad Conjuror, this Venomous Fabricant, when it expires, it also leaves behind a soul. Okay, that one went way off. Not that one. But it also leaves behind a soul to suck up for Deaden Pain and Major Protection. So let's go ahead and look at the champion point distribution now, and we'll talk about all this. And before we jump in, I want to say these don't have to be followed exactly to a T. You can tweak them as you see fit to accommodate your own style. But Elemental Expert, 11% more Flame, Frost, Shock, and Magic damage. That's going to buff all of our procs as well. Spell Erosion, 4,200 more Spell Pen. That's going to buff our procs and how hard they hit as well. We don't need anything in Elfborn because we're not dealing crit hits. Blessed, you could put some if you wanted in there for more, more healing done, but for me it wasn't that important. There's a lot of healing source in this build. You don't really have an issue staying alive. So that's pretty much the apprentice tree here. Now, the Atronach, we got 20% into Staff Expert because we're doing weaving with our destruction staves, the light and crushing shock on the Inferno, and typically the heavy pulls and the shock. Master at Arms, 20%. We want this because a lot of the bursty damage, like say Mad Conjuror, the Graveyard Synergy, your Colossus, those are all going to be scaled up from Master at Arms. Increasing all those damages. So there wasn't really... Oh, you want to have Butcher, definitely get 75 points into this tree. You want to have that light and heavy attack by 5% when enemies drop below 25% health. In this tree, we wanted 75 points. So to do that, we did Thaumaturge, increase the damage done with damage over time effects. That's going to increase your heavy attack lightning staff pulls. That's going to increase Icy Conjurer, your Avid Boneyard, anything that say damage over time. Now, we just put 3 points into this piercing, even though we're not dealing any physical damage, because we wanted to have 75 points into this tree for the Exploiter passive. But remember, I didn't put him into Thaumaturge because it goes to 23.4, and it doesn't give me any more damage on Thaumaturge. The next increment of damage would be 24%. Any decimal above the whole number isn't going to apply. So I went ahead and just put it into Piercing because I want this exploiter. This is a general rule to use when you're distributing all of your CP points. You don't want to go in the middle of a decimal. Stick to whole numbers and one click above them. And on the matter of the exploiter passive, it's increasing your damage by 10% against people who are affected with off balance. That is going to be all the time with that charged shock glyph. Into the resistance trees now, Ironclad and Spell Shield. Ironclad is very important in PvP because most of the damage that's going to threaten you is going to be big bursty damage happening all at once, not, long, slow dots. So getting 19% additional damage mitigation against those types of attacks helps us go a long way in PvP. Resilient, when you take critical damage, you're going to heal off of that. So we have 120 points invested into this tree, so we get every reward here, including the dodge roll, physical and spell resistance buff, but you want to at least have 75 points in that tree. The warrior, the lady, light armor and hardy, an elemental, it's kind of distributed even here. I like to get at least 7% out of my elemental defenders and my hardies. Thick skin is going to decrease the damage you take from damage over time effects, but we have 120 points in this tree. Now, critical leech, the passive that unlocks at 75 points, you won't deal critical damage with Malakast Banded Brutality, but other than that, otherwise, that's a very important skill. I always advise making sure to unlock that. So that wraps up the lady. Moving into the next tree, the Lord, Expert Defender, and Quick Recovery. So 7% less damage taken from light and heavy attacks from enemy players, and 5% additional healing received. Bastion, you could put some in there if you wanted to switch things around, but we're not really going for a lot of shields. We do have the light armor shield, Absorb Magicka, Dampen Magic Morph, slotted on this this build, but it's not really what the shield cap's worth investing into. We're not maximizing. So now into the recovery trees. Now this tree, we had 3 extra points. Sprinter was the only thing really in this one. This is the tree that we're highly invested in. Mooncalf, 9% additional stamina recovery. Arcanist, 14% Magicka recovery. Tenacity, 9% additional resources back to us after a heavy attack with our lightning staff. That's going to happen a lot. And 10% health recovery, which is going to go a longer way now that we're no longer a vampire, on these builds. It seems like it's you got to make a build tailored specifically to a vampire. You don't just get the free 10% Magicka and stamina recoveries, and it's a whole different thing being a vampire these days, but we no longer have the health recovery debuff. So anyway, in the next one, Shadow Ward and Tumbling, it's just basically our block cost reduction, our dodge roll reduction. We do get Treasure Hunter if we're wanting to run around the world. We get better stuff out of chests, but this tree pretty much just helps us keep our stamina going a little more. That wraps up the CP distribution section and actually wraps up this build video. The Mad Conjuror build. If you really enjoyed this video and you want to see more, check out my channel, AOE Gaming. I've got a lot of other cool builds on there. Some from previous patches, but they still work great, if not better now in the Stonethorn patch we're in today, as well as some other cool stuff on there to check out. I've also got plenty of more content on the way, so please subscribe. Thanks guys for watching. Dark Energy with AOE Gaming, signing out.